The moment she placed her last $20 bill into the trembling hand of a homeless stranger, she had no idea that she had just changed the life of a man who could have bought everything she had ever dreamed of. She was a poor college student with barely enough money to survive the week, while he was a hidden billionaire sitting on a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But he wasn't on that street because he had lost his money. He was there because he had lost faith in people. And what happened between them would prove that sometimes the purest love is found where nobody thinks to look. 21-year-old Maya Carter had learned early that life did not give everyone the same chances. She lived in a tiny rented room above an old grocery store, worked early mornings at a cafe, attended college during the day, and spent her evenings studying beneath a flickering desk lamp. Her mother had passed away when Maya was 17, leaving her with a mountain of unpaid bills and one piece of advice that she never forgot: never let hardship make your heart hard. Maya followed those words even when kindness cost her something. That was why, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, she stopped when she saw a thin, exhausted man sitting beneath a broken awning near the bus station. The man looked like he had been forgotten by the entire world. His clothes were old and torn, his shoes were worn through, and his face carried the kind of sadness that came from years of disappointment. Maya had only $20 left in her wallet. It was supposed to buy groceries and help pay for her bus ride to campus the next morning. She stood there for several seconds, fighting an argument inside herself. Then she noticed the man's hands shaking from hunger. Without thinking about her own empty refrigerator, she handed him the entire bill. She expected nothing in return and walked away before he could even thank her. If you believe that humanity, kindness, and second chances can still change lives, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in the goodness of people, leave a comment, and subscribe to Humanity Tales. Sometimes one small act of kindness can become the beginning of an extraordinary story. What Maya didn't know was that the homeless man was actually Alexander Grant, the founder of one of the country's most successful technology companies. Alexander was worth more money than Maya could imagine, but 6 months earlier, he had made a painful decision. He wanted to know whether anyone could love him without knowing his name, his wealth, or his position. After years of being surrounded by people who wanted his money, he had begun disguising himself as a homeless man and quietly observing how strangers treated someone they believed had nothing to offer them. His security team watched from a distance, but Alexander personally wanted to experience the world without his wealth protecting him. He had been disappointed again and again. Some people ignored him. Others mocked him. A few threw coins at him without even looking into his eyes. Then Maya had appeared. She hadn't asked what he could give her. She hadn't taken a photograph or waited for praise. She had simply seen a hungry human being and given him everything she had. The next morning, Alexander secretly arranged for someone to learn everything about Maya. What he discovered surprised him. She wasn't pretending to be kind. She had been helping people for years despite struggling herself. She volunteered at a community kitchen, shared her textbooks with classmates who couldn't afford them, and sometimes walked home instead of taking the bus so she could give her fare to someone else. Alexander began watching her from a distance, but the more he learned, the more uncomfortable he became with his own deception. A few days later, Alexander returned to the same street dressed as the poor beggar. Maya recognized him immediately. She smiled and handed him a small paper bag containing a sandwich and a bottle of water. This time she didn't have money to give, but she had prepared food from the little she had at home. Alexander realized that her kindness wasn't connected to how much she possessed. She gave because giving was simply part of who she was. Over the following weeks, an unexpected friendship developed. Maya never knew Alexander's true identity. She thought he was simply an older homeless man named Alex who had fallen on difficult times. She began talking to him after classes, telling him about her dreams of becoming a teacher and opening a free learning center for children who couldn't afford tutoring. Alexander listened carefully, realizing that the woman he had been searching for was sitting beside him without knowing that he was searching for her. But then everything began to unravel. One afternoon, Maya arrived at the street and found police officers surrounding the area. The homeless man was gone. Before she could understand what had happened, a black luxury vehicle stopped nearby. A sharply dressed assistant stepped out and called Alexander by his full name. Maya froze. Her heart sank as she watched the man she thought was homeless walk toward the vehicle wearing an expensive suit. The next morning, Alexander appeared at Maya's college. He didn't hide anymore. He told her the truth about his company, his wealth, and the reason he had disguised himself. Maya felt betrayed. She wasn't angry because he was rich. She was hurt because the friendship she treasured had begun with a lie. Alexander expected her to walk away, but he also knew he deserved her anger. Instead of buying her forgiveness, he gave her space. He never sent expensive gifts. He never tried to impress her with money. For the first time in his life, Alexander understood that genuine love couldn't be purchased, pressured, or negotiated. It had to be earned through honesty. Months passed. Alexander helped Maya's community project, but he placed the organization in her hands and refused to control it. He funded scholarships for struggling students anonymously and made sure Maya received credit for the ideas. Slowly, she began to understand that beneath his terrible mistake was a lonely man who had spent years wondering whether anyone could see him without seeing his fortune. One evening, Maya returned to the same street where their story had begun. Alexander was waiting there, not dressed as a billionaire and not pretending to be homeless. He was simply himself. Maya looked at him and realized that somewhere between the broken sidewalk, the cheap sandwiches, the difficult conversations, and the painful truth, something real had grown. Their relationship did not become perfect overnight. They still had disagreements, fears, and differences. But they had something stronger than perfection: honesty. Alexander eventually proposed to Maya without a diamond the size of a fortune or a room filled with cameras. He simply asked her to build a life with him based on the one thing money had never been able to buy: trust. Years later, the free learning center Maya had dreamed about became a reality. Children from struggling families filled its classrooms every afternoon. Alexander funded it, but Maya led it. And every year, on the anniversary of the day they first met, they returned to that same street and remembered the $20 bill that had started everything. Maya had thought she was giving away her last bit of money to a helpless stranger. In reality, she had given hope to a man who had everything except faith in humanity. And Alexander had thought he was testing the world to find someone who could love him without his fortune. In the end, he discovered something far more valuable: a woman whose heart was richer than his bank account could ever be. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness still matters, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe for more emotional stories about humanity, love, and second chances. Before the story ends, comment, "Kindness still matters," if you believe that a person's true worth is measured by the goodness in their heart, not by the money in their pocket. Because sometimes, the person sitting quietly on the street isn't waiting for money. Sometimes, they're waiting for someone to look at them and simply remember that they're human. And sometimes, one small act of kindness is all it takes to change two lives forever.